Greece wants the Parthenon marbles back, but has been rejected over and over again by the British Museum. On March 24th, the eve of the 200th anniversary of the declaration of the Greek War of Independence, a resolution calling for the return of the sculptures to Greece was introduced in the House of Commons in Ottawa. The motion was introduced by Greek-Canadian Member of Parliament Niki Ashton and supported by Liberal MPs Emanuela Labropoulos, Peter Fragiskatos, and Annie Koutrakis. It received support from the Liberals, the Bloc Québécois, the New Democratic Party, and the Green Party, but failed to receive the unanimous support required to pass. With us to discuss the motion is the MP for Churchill, Kiwatinuk Aski, Niki Ashton. Niki, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. Great to be with you, Peter. Great to be back on Odyssey. Χαιρετίσματα σε όλους.
Χαιρόμαστε πολύ που σε έχουμε στην παρέα μας. So, can you please explain the process to our audience, since it appears that the majority of parties supported the motion and it didn't pass? Why does it require unanimous support, first of all?
Well, first, it was intentional to put forward a motion seeking unanimous consent because the full motion began with the call to recognize the bicentennial of Greece's Declaration of Independence, recognize a huge anniversary for Greeks around the world, for Greeks in Canada, and tied into that, recognize that, while Greece has given so much to the world, it's time to give something back. And that something is so symbolic is the Parthenon marbles. And so it was very much I felt it's far more genuine for us to not just say, χρόνια πολλά, happy anniversary, zito η Ελλάδα, as Canadian parliamentarians, but to do something about it in action. And so that's why it was intentional to put the call together, this anniversary and the call for the return of the Parthenon marbles. And to be honest, Peter, I didn't think this was going to be an issue that anybody would be opposed to, in part because it's something that our parliament had passed back in 2003, right? So 18 years ago, and I want to recognize the work of previous Greek MPs, Eleni Bakopounou and John Kanis, who put forward that motion, and it was passed not by everyone again, but it was a position put forward by Parliament at the time. And in fact, at that time, it was tied into, the Parthenon marbles ought to be returned before the Olympics. So here we are, fast forward 18 years later, the marbles are still not back. Greece, of course, as we all know, has a state-of-the-art museum. Yes. Greece, as we all know, has been making very clear that this is a fundamental issue for them. We know of people around the world, politicians, celebrities, so many people have said, this is very matter of fact. It is time, way past time, for these marbles to come back to their country of origin, to Greece. And when I first started talking with colleagues from other parties, of course, other Greek MPs were fully on side. Mm-hmm. Of course, we had discussions with other non-Greek MPs, and it was very positive. But when I got to the Conservative Party, at first I didn't actually hear anything, and I had to make some further calls. And one of the people I spoke to was Senator Leo Housakos, yes, who's also supportive of the marbles coming back. And I know he did speak with parliamentary colleagues. And of course, as we know, the Senate has its own process. This was in the parliamentary side of things, and to be honest, it was very disappointing. We didn't hear from anybody from the parliamentary side directly until 20 minutes before I put forward the position, right? And so to me, it's disappointing in and of itself, but it's also disappointing that that we have Canadian parliamentarians who I'm sure on any given day would tell you, yes, they value the contributions of the Greek Canadian community and of Greeks around the world, but wait, not so much to say we hear you and support what's important to you and what's important to Greece, right? And so But look, for me, this is not over. This is a sign that we have work to do. It's a sign that certain parliamentarians perhaps deserve an education of what injustice it is we're talking about. And of course, we know of the very problematic comments of British Prime Minister Boris Johnson just a few weeks ago,
Yes.
talking about how the marbles were taken legally. I mean, it's just shocking that in the year of the anniversary of the revolution against the Ottoman Empire, that we're hearing a British Prime Minister say that they legally got the marbles.
That Britain is
And
the
so
legitimate
I
owners.
would say, yeah, I mean, it's just shocking, and deeply insulting, and even more insulting to sort of hear this sort of reference, the continuation of the classical approach to the world. I mean, I have a lot of choice words in Greek that come to mind to describe that analysis from Boris Johnson, but fundamentally it's a lie, and it's they're on the wrong side of history, right? So we need to clear up those misnomers, and we need to get all MPs on side to be able to say with a unified voice, this is a question of righting a wrong. This is a question of truly honoring what Greece has given to the world, and and we have a leadership role to play as Canadians to say, give to the UK, it's time to give the marbles back to Greece, the Parthenon marbles back to Greece.
So hypothetically speaking, let's say the motion passed, or let's say a similar motion passes in the future. What's the next step? What can the Canadian Parliament do?
Well, first of all, these motions would be noticed, I guess, recognized by the countries, to whom we're directing it. It is a clear directive. I mean, even the fact that the motion did receive the support of 4 out of the 5 parties in Parliament makes it clear that most of Parliament is on side, including the governing party, right? And I hope that the UK has already taken notes on that, the vast majority of Canadian MPs and the Canadian Parliament representing the Canadian people feel that it's high time that the Parthenon marbles be returned. So it's a sign, it's a proposal, and I think it's important to join others, including in the UK, who have ongoing campaigns to keep applying pressure, right? And again, we know from UK Prime Minister's Boris Johnson's statements that deeply flawed statements, and not factual. And so basically there's work to be done, both in our parliaments and beyond.
What about ancient Greek antiquities displayed in Canadian museums? For instance, the Royal Ontario Museum boasts 1,500 objects in its display alone. Should we return those as well?
I think we should. I haven't had the chance to see the that section of the Royal Ontario Museum, but if you go to Europe, I mean, for example, the Pergamon Museum in Berlin, right? I mean, across in Northern Europe, it's shocking, right? The Louvre, yeah. I mean, actually, in the Louvre, for me, an antiquity that hits close to home is of course the statue of Niki, which is from Thraki, from where my family is from, right? And and these aren't pieces that are shoved off to the side in some sort of dark hallway. These are centerpieces. I mean, in the British Museum, they have a huge hall dedicated to them, right? And they are a focal point, right? And so because they are incredible, right? They are stunning pieces of they're stunning artifacts, right? And so I think we're at a time where the world is a small place, right? I mean, and there's ways of honoring that history. First of all, I would say, first of all, we need to do justice and return the antiquities back to Greece that belong to Greece. But I also think it's excuses around where would they be stored, who would see them, et cetera, et cetera. First of all, so much of the world goes to Greece, right?
Exactly.
And when COVID is over, they will continue to go to Greece in greater numbers. And we know, again, the Parthenon Museum is an incredible, stunning, state-of-the-art museum. And we also know through sort of the online world, there's ways of connecting and seeing what belongs to these countries in their own home, right? In fact, I saw on Facebook today somebody shared that the Louvre is putting all of its artwork online for people to admire, right? And for free, right? And so it's simply it's on the wrong side of history to think that they should stay in the countries that took them without permission and without support.
Let's take a quick break, and when we return, we're going to talk about the Progressive International here with MP Niki Ashton. In December 2018, the Democracy in Europe movement, known as DM25, and the Sanders Institute issued an open call to all progressive forces to form a common front. According to the movement's website, Niki Ashton is a member of the Council of Advisors responsible for setting the strategic direction of the Progressive International. Niki, what made you want to join this movement?
Well, first of all, it was Bernie Sanders who invited me to be part of the gathering in Vermont. And of course, I went on to find out that Yanis Varoufakis and other incredible progressive voices around the world would be there. And when Bernie Sanders invites you to something, who says no, right? I certainly don't. And it was an incredible honor, right? An incredible honor to be there to talk about, the struggles that we're facing here in Canada, rising inequality, the rise of the far right, the threat of climate change, and sharing what these struggles look like, how people are fighting back, and how we can support one another. And of course, it was deeply inspiring to hear from others who are very much taking on these same challenges in their own countries, in other parts of the world, and learning from them. How is it that they do it? What can we take back from them? How can we build those coalitions? How can we put up the fight, and also very importantly, what kind of bold ideas can we put forward to be able to build a society that is that is just, right, where we do have social justice and environmental justice and economic justice. And so that was very much the focus of the discussion there at the gathering. Bernie Sanders went on to run for president, so the Sanders Institute went on pause, and then of course COVID hit, but slowly things started coming together. And I would say that since 2018, the need for a global progressive network, I believe, has become even clearer as we see all of these challenges become more serious, right? And as we see as well that the right and the far right is connecting with each other around the world, learning from each other, if you could put it that way. And it's so important for the rest of us who want to see a better future for our children, for everyone, to work together, and that's really what Progressive International is all about.
Earlier, you mentioned Yanis Varoufakis. Have you been working closely with the Secretary General of Mera Ikospede?
Well, Yanis and I have connected specifically around, of course, at the Sanders Institute. I had the chance to sit down and speak with him. Obviously, a very special visit. I really admire the work he's done. Overall, but also in defending Greece, and of course at the height of the economic crisis, he was a heroic voice in opposing austerity measures and really advocating for Greeks, right, and for Greece to be able to decide its own future, as opposed to what the rest of the world wanted at the time. And of course, he's gone on to be elected to the Greek parliament with his own party, and they're putting forward a number of key progressive positions there. And through Progressive International, I've had the chance to connect with him on a few occasions. We hosted an event with Jeremy Corbyn, and he sent a video of support and solidarity.
The former leader of the Labour Party, yes.
Yes, with Jeremy Corbyn, the former leader of the UK Labour Party, and then this past weekend, Varoufakis and I were part of a panel to talk about the destructive actions being taken by the authoritarian regime of Erdogan in Turkey, and of course something that has major implications for Greece in terms of security and stability. But of course the focus was primarily on the attack on progressive people in Turkey itself, and it was a very powerful event because of course those of us that are connected to Greece know how important it is to have have voices that are speaking out for peace and diplomacy rather than conflict and aggression, and that was very much a message that Yanis shared, and I had the opportunity to share as well, and I look forward to working with him more closely in the months and years to come.
I'm going to veer off topic just for 1 second. Senator Leo Housakos was on our show a few weeks ago, and he condemned the Liberal government's decision to sell arms to Turkey, which found their way in Azerbaijan. How would you comment on that?
It's shocking, right? And the fact that Canada is first of all profiting, but also supporting the the war mongering and the conflict against the Armenians and against the Kurds in their own country, right? Is unacceptable, and we need to see Canada put an immediate stop to the selling of arms to Turkey. I would say overall. What came out clearly in this panel is the Erdogan regime is becoming more and more aggressive, and the panel was focused more in terms of its own people. I mean, people may not know, and I certainly learned, what's happening most recently, but the Erdogan regime is seeking to render illegal the second most powerful opposition party in Turkey. It's jailed. The HDP, exactly. It's jailed its MPs, some of its MPs, mayors, supporters. It's putting its executive on trial, I believe, at the end of April. I mean, this is shocking, right? And to hear from a country that has a foot in Europe and aspires to be has aspired to be part of the European Union.
A member of NATO.
This is exactly a member of NATO. I try not to talk about NATO's business, but Canada has a responsibility to denounce that aggression, to denounce those human rights violations, and to act by withdrawing any sort of military contribution and the contribution of military technology. And I'm very disappointed to see Trudeau not take a stand. And of course, we heard them say Zito y Helada, and they profess a great amount of support towards the Armenian community. But in real terms, that solidarity or that support for the well-being of the Greeks and the Armenians and others also means taking a stand against what the Erdogan regime is doing in Turkey and beyond.
Unfortunately, we're running out of time. I'd love to talk with you for a few more hours about all these interesting topics. But is there something you would like to add before we wrap up?
Absolutely. Well, Peter, anytime. It's such a pleasure to be back on Odyssey. I have the best memories best memories of being on Odyssey, speaking with Natasa, with your team there. So I'd be happy to be back. And look, I'd love to ask your viewers and listeners to stay tuned on work that we'll be doing on the Parthenon marbles. Again, we're not letting up. This is something that Canada must take a stand on, the return of the Parthenon marbles to Greece. And more broadly, I encourage people to stay tuned, to keep in touch. For me, it's so important that the issues of our communities, both national and international, be acted on, going forward. So, and I wish everybody during these challenging times well. Please take care. Και εύχομαι να σας δω και πάλι αυτοπροσώπως στο Τορόντο όσο πιο γρήγορα γίνεται.
Niki, σε ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ. Thank you so much, and hopefully we'll get to chat again soon.
I hope so. Να είσαι καλά, Peter. Thank you.
Thank you.